Assassin's Creed Shadows was just delayed, and I'm clearly ready for it. So let's mourn together, let's go over the details, and let's talk about what this means for Ubisoft as a business. Okay, so come with me over here. These are the announcements that just came out an hour ago. All of the titles are mostly about the actual date that it will now be released on, which is February 14th, 2025. So it's coming out on Valentine's Day, which is an interesting choice because wives and girlfriends around the world will be neglected on this upcoming Valentine's Day. It also has a few other details I'd really like to get into here. Let's go through the tweets real quick. This is where I first saw it. Assassin's Creed Shadows will now release February 14th. Dear players, Assassin's Creed Shadows is a dream project for us, finally bringing the series to feudal Japan with many features developed with our community in mind, such as parkour or the renewed stealth, brought by new technology, all set in a beautiful, immersive world. This is an ambitious addition to the franchise, a rich experience that can be lived through the eyes of two unique protagonists, but we realize we need more time to polish and refine the experience, pushing further some of our key features. As such, we've made the decision to postpone the release date to February 14th, 2025. The game will release on a broad range of platforms, including Steam at launch. Note that. We will come back to it. Additionally, pre-orders will be refunded and all future pre-orders will be granted the first expansion for free. Also important, note that. We understand this decision will come as disappointing news, especially to those who have been waiting patiently for an Assassin's Creed game inspired by feudal Japan. But we sincerely believe this is the best interest of the game and ultimately your experience as a player. Until then, we thank you for your ongoing support. All teams working on Assassin's Creed Shadows. So, two things in here that are very, very important, okay? That they're releasing on Steam at launch, and additionally pre-orders will be refunded, and getting the first expansion for free, okay? What this means is, I think, from a business perspective, that they are likely wanting, I'm hoping what this means is that the Steam launch they anticipate will have even more of an impact than holiday sales would at their current marketing level. So it's probably a few layers of things. They haven't been doing enough marketing, and big Assassin's Creed fans who have been used to these launches for years and years are saying, hey, there's not enough marketing. What's going on? I've seen that all over Twitter as I've been getting excited for Shadows. So this comes as no surprise, especially after the news yesterday that they had backed out of the Tokyo Games Con with the presentation they were going to do there. Everyone was starting to speculate yesterday. So it's not as surprising as it would have been just out of the blue. We've already had some cancellations and lower marketing than you would expect for this game. Now, they have obviously been putting in a lot of marketing. Don't get me wrong. They have, along with Star Wars Outlaws, they've had like all of these big, huge publicities at different cons. So it's not that they've done no marketing, but they haven't done enough of like the video marketing and showing us what we're going to be getting into in the game. And so we've all been awaiting eagerly for a lot of these things. And so we can speculate that maybe this was for features of the game based on what they're saying. Maybe something went wrong. We're so close. We're about, 8 weeks out from when it was supposed to launch? Less than that, actually. 7 weeks? We're about 7 weeks out from when it was supposed to launch. Early access probably would have been launching in about 6 weeks. So something must have gone terribly wrong for it not to have gone gold and been ready to go at this point. So who knows? We can only speculate here, but it could be probably a big number of things that went wrong. And they were like, we just need to delay. And here are my current assumptions. They haven't marketed enough because of maybe just not having enough resources to get all of those things done, and maybe some mismanagement. There is actually an article on that, and we'll get to that. So maybe a little bit of mismanagement of getting things done on a very tight timeline. Could also be that Star Wars Outlaws didn't do as well as they anticipated, so maybe that shifted some things and shifted some priorities. I would assume that this would be priorities in making any shareholders happy, so likely money and reputation. Many are suggesting that Outlaws hasn't done as well as they anticipated. It's very likely, even though I loved it and I finished it last week and it's become one of my favorite all-time games, that doesn't mean that everybody has. And it did get a lot of negative publicity with all sorts of internet drama, if you will. And so has Shadows. And so because of that, whether you agree with the negativity or not, I absolutely don't, but there are a lot of people who do. Not that that necessarily always matters. We saw what happened with Harry Potter and negativity from a totally different really group and target market of people who were very upset about Harry Potter, but it did really well anyway. So the internet drama doesn't necessarily equate to the sales because it's in its own little silo. But nonetheless, something it's gotten big enough that it seems that Ubisoft is on the defense. And many of us have speculated that that drama has not been a good thing for them. And this appears to validate that fear. They've never delayed an Assassin's Creed game that I know of. It's always been an October and November time release frame. Outlaws was on time. Ubisoft doesn't generally delay at least these titles as much as some other games. At least Assassin's Creed has been very steady. Even Mirage last year came out a week early. It came out a week ahead of time, which I had to race because I was playing the whole series back to back and I had to squish it by a week. So that was actually stressful for me a little bit. And now this year I'm going to have to redo my entire timeline. It's going to throw my holidays off. All of any break plans I had from streaming to work on YouTube, I'm now going to have to shift around based on this new timeline. So anybody who's upset, I am mourning with you because this, as a full-time gamer, this is completely shifting everything in my life, to be honest. So I want to get this news out to you and validate anyone who's also upset by this news because I've been very excited for this game. Another thing that's interesting is Valhalla, the last really large game, because Mirage was more of like a medium-sized game for them. It was going to be a DLC and then they made it into a game. And the launch was a bit smaller than a lot of the other major titles of recent years. And so this was going to be the first big game since 2020 for Assassin's Creed. Valhalla actually did over $1 billion. It did really, really well. So it's not that they would just assume that Assassin's Creed would do poorly, but it could be based on pre-orders. It could be any number of things. And unfortunately, all we have that they're telling us is that renewed stealth, new technology, ambitious, 2 unique protagonists. We need more time to polish key features. That's what we can kind of summarize from that first paragraph. All right. So what I'm getting there is that something went wrong with some of these new features, or enough went wrong with all of them. They didn't feel good enough, and they knew they were going to release an extremely buggy product or a product that wasn't quite on par with what they wanted, even if it wasn't buggy. Maybe they were missing pieces of the features that they said, hey, if you want it by this deadline, we're going to have to sacrifice these pieces. And they analyzed which pieces were going to be sacrificed, and they said that is not worth it. It's not worth it to meet the deadline. Then maybe they also added on the marketing issues with not meeting the deadline for whatever reason. It's interesting that they're having these issues when they really haven't before for Assassin's Creed. So who knows what went wrong in all of this? Maybe it's because they had split so many resources between the big Star Wars Outlaws launch and this Shadows launch so close together. That wouldn't surprise me at all. So it could have just been mismanagement of 2 huge projects and trying to do both. There could have been mistakes made. So them missing holiday sales is actually a really, really, really bad sign. That could mean a huge detriment for their financials long term and even worse short term, because that quarter is going to look terrible compared to their budget and forecast for the year. And I don't know. Let me see what Ubisoft's fiscal year is real quick. All right, the Ubisoft fiscal year is, here we go. It ends in March, actually. So that means it's shifted by 1. So it's still going to be in their 24 fiscal year. So for anyone who isn't as familiar with finance, I used to work in corporate finance for large Fortune 500, so this is very familiar to me. The fiscal year means the year that they're reporting to investors and to the public as, hey, and companies will move it based on any number of reasons. But basically it means their 2024 will end next March 2025, which is after the release of the game. And that's as far as they would probably push it in a delay, because it's still within the same fiscal year. So they'll still meet their yearly targets if it sells the way they want to. It'll still be within that time frame, but their quarters are going to shift. So their years aren't shifting, which is important. I think that is a saving grace for Ubisoft continuing on. But nonetheless, I'm pretty nervous about that. It doesn't bode well for Assassin's Creed or other Ubisoft titles. They've already canceled some other titles that people were excited for in the last couple of years. I'm nervous, and I had been saying, no, it's going to be fine. I'm very much kind of a, I believe it when I see it type of deal. And so when people were starting to suggest, oh, this isn't looking good for Ubisoft, look at the stock price, I'm like, that doesn't necessarily mean anything. Does it point towards something? Yes, but it doesn't mean anything until we see what's actually happening. Because unless you're in those rooms, they're shifting things at any given time. They're having conversations that we don't hear. They've probably been having conversations about should we delay for a really long time, and saying, no, we shouldn't delay, because of course they want the holiday sales. That's a huge hit they're going to take. And because it's the first time they've ever done it and it looks bad, it's like when a company has layoffs, that looks really bad. Delaying a game looks really bad. So obviously they wanted to avoid that bad publicity as much as possible. And so since they chose to do it, that means that they think that it was going to be such a poor launch in its current state and with the current marketing that they thought moving it would actually have a net positive benefit financially and to their reputation. One of those two might be being sacrificed, and I presume they would want money over reputation at this point, because the reputation has been not so good for anyone outside of the AC fandom like me. A lot of people have been very, very, very anti-Ubisoft, even the crowds who haven't been anti-Ubisoft in the past. So it's looking really rough for them. What I'm hoping is, now let's go back to this real quick, because here's the bright side. So I am hoping that this, including Steam at launch, releasing on a broad range of platforms. I assume they weren't doing this before. I don't really hear about the PC release, so I wasn't paying much attention. I'm getting it on PlayStation. PC is not my main gaming platform. So I guess it wasn't, because they're mentioning Steam specifically. I assume it wasn't going to release on Steam at launch. I'm hoping that this makes up for the lack of sales that they would have had in the holidays, and that people will buy it on Steam. That's what I assume they're anticipating, at least, that Steam will matter so much and will hit so hard. And if they do it right, maybe, because the thing is, I don't know that it'll really help. I'm working on another video right now where people are so frustrated with logins and launchers for Ubisoft, Rockstar, PSN, anything that's PSN related. They hate the launchers and the logins. Now, while I think it's the silliest complaint I've ever heard in my life, it takes 2 minutes to log in, it's still a complaint that people are having, regardless of if I agree with it. And so I don't know that this is going to make up for the fact that they're not launching in the holidays, because now people are going to put their money elsewhere in the holidays, and that money is gone, and people are hurting for money these days in this economy. So people buying a game in February, hopefully Steam will make up for that, and PC players will want to play this game regardless of the potential login experience. We can hope. But as Assassin's Creed fans, this is really, really bad news. Now, another interesting thing is that they are refunding the pre-orders. So anybody who got pre-orders is not left in the lurch. Hopefully that reestablishes some trust with those who pre-ordered early, and goes towards, giving them something, especially with saying all future pre-orders will be granted the first expansion for free. So they're changing, we saw it over here, they're ditching the traditional season pass model, hitting Steam day one. This is a big, I think they changed this title actually since they updated. See, I think they changed this title since they posted this article. They didn't have the Steam part at first. So it's a pretty big delay. 3 months. It's barely catching their end of year. It's missing the holidays. Now, there's still, here we go. The Assassin's Creed Shadows delay comes amid a troubling time for Ubisoft that has seen its share price collapse following the release of Star Wars Outlaws. Again, this is really disappointing for those of us who loved Star Wars Outlaws. It's in my top 10 games, in my top 2 open world, in my top 5 action adventure. I really, really enjoyed the game. So it's disappointing that this happened. There's a number of reasons. I think bad press is obviously one of them. Because the thing is, it has a lot of innovative features, and I'm actually really shocked how bad even journalists treated the game, because it has innovative features, and I have a video coming out on that as well that I've already recorded, and have a few that I recorded early on. So if you want to see that, maybe I'll put it above or in the description. But there's really no reason for all the hate. Most of the hate was, we think that the woman has ugly chin, which is like what does that have to do with the game? And then they think the Ubisoft formula is repetitive, yet Star Wars Outlaws was immensely innovative compared to a lot of the formula that they've had in the past. It didn't even have XP grinding, for goodness sakes. There was no XP in the game. They did a completely different system for it. That was really cool. Where did this part go that we were looking for? These ads are like jumping in and destroying everything. Oh, here we go. Earlier this month, a minority investor in Ubisoft issued a strongly worded open letter to Ubisoft's board of directors, including its CEO, Yves Guillemot, as well as fellow investor Tencent. That's a whole story. That expressed dissatisfaction with the performance of the company and its current share price. So it's clearly financial things are happening. This goes further. So somebody had posted about an investigation into the company on Twitter, and I was like, where'd you find this? I don't know if they responded, but we found it anyway. I Googled it. Imagine that, trolls on Twitter who might be watching this and thinking. Anyway, it's really easy to Google stuff, guys. It has been announced that Ubisoft's executive committee and board of directors will launch an investigation and review of the company. The delay of AC Shadows and the announcement that Star Wars Outlaws underperformed. The statement read, in light of recent challenges, we acknowledge the need for greater efficiency while delighting players. As a result, beyond the first important short-term actions undertaken, the executive committee, under the supervision of the board of directors, is launching a review aimed at further improving our execution, notably in this player-centric approach, and accelerating our strategic path towards a higher performing model to benefit our stakeholders and shareholders. And for those who don't know the difference between those two, stakeholders involve also employees and partners and anybody who has stake in the company, whereas shareholders are those who actually literally hold financial shares. Let's see what else we have here. Finally, let me address some of the polarizing comments around Ubisoft lately. I want to reaffirm that we are an entertainment-first company. Now, this is really interesting because I think whoever is launching, who's launching this internal investigation? Executive committee and board of directors. Okay, so I think that they're completely fair in doing this. I think that the dramatics and negative press has gotten out of control for Ubisoft. Whether you agree with it or not, we can all agree that there's a huge negative discussion occurring around Ubisoft, especially supposedly in Japan. I can't read Japanese, so I'm having to trust what people are saying or the translate post function. All right. So however much that's actually occurring seems to be enough to have them upset. And I think that that's fair because there's no reason for this to be occurring. What people are getting so upset about every time that I talk to them on Twitter is they say, well, Ubisoft shouldn't have said that they're historically accurate. They said it and now it's not historically accurate and I am upset. It's like, who the hell cares? That has nothing to do with the actual game or the gameplay. That's just marketing. That has nothing to do with what's actually going on in the game. Those two are separate entities. And whether they market it as historically accurate as possible doesn't reflect on the actual gameplay and if it is fun. That's why they're saying we are an entertainment first company. Now, don't get me wrong. It doesn't mean marketing isn't important. I was very disappointed in Cyberpunk because they lied in their marketing. So I understand having some degree of upset towards marketing specifically, but it is separate from the game. When I say I don't like Cyberpunk, it is both marketing and the game. Okay. But some people aren't even thinking that deeply about it. They just say, oh, they're lying to me. I don't want part in it. And to me, that's strange because, again, it has nothing to do with the game. It's people getting upset about things adjacent to the game. Nonetheless, marketing is where the power lies in selling anything. And they have absolutely flubbed it up because they're suggesting that Ubisoft has said they're historically accurate. And then sometimes they have publicity that I've seen that says, no, we're not trying to be perfectly historically accurate. And here's the thing, they're not. And that's what they should have gone with the whole time. They never should have said, oh, we're trying to do our best with historical accuracy. They should have said, we are somewhat historically accurate and have historians that we're working with to ensure that we are being as respectful as possible. Also, this isn't about historically accurate portrayal of feudal Japan in terms of this being like a walking museum. While it will have historically accurate details, what we focus on is that history is our playground, or something to that effect. I came up with this just now on the spot. A PR person should have done a much better job of wording that so that people weren't grasping at, oh, this is historically accurate and Yusuke is real. And it's like, he is a real person, but now they're grasping onto that you said he's a real samurai, blah, 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 blah. So they've like just said just enough words that people are grasping onto and getting upset about. And so I think they're right in launching this, because PR, marketing, whomever was pushing these ideas was doing a really bad job at saying, hey, all Assassin's Creed has ever been is history is our playground. It has some reality, but it's very rooted in fantasy and Assassin's Creed lore. And we will sacrifice reality and realism for what makes entertainment any given day. And that's what they should have said. And so they should be launching this, to be honest, because somebody has flubbed up. And I don't think it's the game makers in any way, shape, or form. I think the game looks really, really cool. And the things they've said about the game looks really, really cool. It's just the discussions that are centering around it. And that's where the sales are going to plummet. I think that's what happened with Star Wars Outlaws, because Star Wars Outlaws itself is a really, really unique game in action adventure. But everything, all of the discussions around it have gotten big enough now, somehow even bigger to affect these games more than the discussion around Harry Potter affected that. And it's like a perfect storm of Ubisoft not having success, not seeing success. And that's the problem for those of us who love their games. So they continue on and they say, we are creating games for the broadest possible audience. And our goal is not to push any specific agenda. These are really important words, because we've got this whole campaign right now of people that are this anti-DEI, anti-Sweet Baby Inc., all of this stuff. And they're trying to suggest, hey, Yusuke, we didn't choose because we're trying to push some sort of agenda. We're not trying to race swap. We're not trying to do any of this. I think that they chose Yusuke because they wanted to differentiate from Ghost of Tsushima. They already have a male Japanese protagonist in a comparable game within a similar genre. They also have this in many other games that are set in feudal Japan. And while these all have distinct differences for all of the games that are set in feudal Japan, people don't think for themselves. They just see feudal Japan and they think all the games are the same and that they all need to be better or worse than one another rather than their own distinct games, which I am currently fighting by having this up and playing Ghost of Tsushima in order to prepare for this game. So that's why my whole game schedule is thrown off, and I already have this decor up specifically because I'm playing Ghost of Tsushima to compare, and not to compare to say better or worse, to compare to say, I think this is for this audience and I think this is for this, and here's where they differ and here's where they're the same. That's it. I'm not trying to push any agenda, just like they're not. And even though I will have my own biases and I will explain them and in any given video, right? So I like that they're saying that, and I hope that they continue down that path, but I think it's a little too late. And it's making me nervous as a Ubisoft fan. We remain committed to creating games for fans and players that everyone can enjoy. So I hope that this is a really, really big mess of things that they can come out from on the other side. I mean, they're a big company. They have a lot of influence. They've done a lot of good things. And even though a lot of people hate on Ubisoft, Ubisoft has had a tremendous impact in the gaming industry, especially the action adventure space. So I don't anticipate them going anywhere unless things get worse, but this is not a good sign. I fully anticipate that Shadows is going to be an amazing game that I enjoy. I still think that it will sell well. I think with this delay, it probably won't sell as well as Valhalla, which is going to be problematic for Ubisoft. I really, really hope to be wrong on that, but missing the holiday sales is going to be huge. Hopefully, I am putting all of my good energy into Steam making up for that. And for people, hopefully not hating the 2-minute login to get there. But that's PC gamers for you. If you're a PC gamer and you hate a login, just remember that it's not a huge deal for you to get into the game. It's a small price to pay to play a game. And not everything needs to be sending a message. You can just play games that you enjoy. That's your prerogative. If you want to spend money on games that you think you'll enjoy or games that you just want to send a message to, that's your prerogative. I can't stop you or convince you otherwise. But you might win, and we might not have Ubisoft anymore if this continues on this path. And to those people, I say, you got your wish. things are going down the drain. I really hope that this is just you winning the battle and not the war. If that's the case, I will love Assassin's Creed, and I will mourn with those of you who also love this series with your whole soul. It is my favorite series in the world outside of maybe Last of Us. I go back and forth. I'm getting a little emotional thinking about the fact that this could be the last Assassin's Creed game, and people are saying that's fatalistic, but this, knowing how the financials work and knowing what a big, huge, giant, horrible financial decision this is, and due to it just doesn't look good. I think that they're big enough they can make this work, but I think they're going to be continuing to scale back and continuing to make tough kill your darlings type of decisions. And if this is the last Assassin's Creed that we get to play, I'm going to make the very most of it. I'm going to cherish the series that they've made, and it will not tarnish for me the reputation that they've built with everything that they built and the impact that they've had in the industry. And we knew that things were going to get bad after 2020 because all of the world stopped. It paused, and we knew that it was going to have far-reaching consequences over the next few years. I think that this is still part of that, but just any fans out there, put your good energy towards it. And if it comes to pass that this is the end of the road for Assassin's Creed fans and we enjoy all of what has already occurred, my story is one of many thousands, and the world will not suffer if it ends too soon. A quote by the legendary Ezio Auditore. I'm MADkurious, and I will see you in whatever the next one is, because I don't know what I will be moving into in gaming next, but I will be enjoying whatever we play next, hopefully with many of you. I'll see you in the next one.